we close our eyes and we take 6 slow, deep, relaxing breaths. With every inhale, we allow ourselves to connect deeply to the source of power within us. And with every exhale, we let go of all tension from our bodies and our minds. Easily, joyously, gently, freely letting go of our day, letting go of our thoughts about what's coming up next, and allowing ourselves to, for just the next 45 minutes or so, just to be here and be here now. And we picture ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain in the center of a circular grove of trees. And inside of the center of our circle, a bonfire blazes forth, and it lights us and the grove up with a sacred golden light. And we recognize that this is the light of perfect love and perfect trust, and it easily and gently burns away everything that is unlike itself. And into this sacred space we call upon the presence and power of our Father Sky and our Mother Earth. We ask that they join with us here as we join together with those of us that are here and those of us that are not here. And we dedicate ourselves and this evening to the way, and we ask that we become more inspired to be happier and more peaceful and more loving people. Thank you very much. Together we say, blessed be.
Blessed be.
Well, did everybody have a good Samhain?
Yeah.
Yay! Okay, I did too.
It was fun to see all of the food that was left over immediately neatly packed and taken to a shelter.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
It was wonderful. I was just tickled.
And I loved seeing people that I hadn't seen in a while, and it's just great to get together with folks. What I thought I would do, I know some of you are still eating, but is before I started talking, I thought I might ask if there are any questions or issues or things, points of discussion that you might have been pondering that you'd like to bring up and maybe ask that I address before we get moving?
Regarding
anything. Preferably something regarding the craft, but, nothing too personal would be okay. Yes.
Okay. Rededication to First Key.
Yes.
First Key comes and goes and ebbs and flows, and sometimes it's great.
You mean your daily practice?
Absolutely.
Okay, your daily practice. Daily magical practice.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Talk for me.
You're not the only person that's been talking about that lately, and so I'm glad you just want me to talk about that?
Yeah, any
Insights?
Yeah, insights.
Well, somebody had emailed me, actually several people had emailed me and said, how do you do that? How do you get up and meditate like you say you do every day? And I said, I just had to start considering that there are certain things that I always do every day. I always get in the shower. I always brush my teeth. I always do the dishes. There's certain types of things that I do, and I consider it a type of spiritual hygiene. And it's not any less important than this. In fact, it's more important than those other things in a lot of ways. So when I started to consider it as that, it was easier for me. Now, when I started to be more dedicated years ago about being very consistent with my practice, I made sure that I didn't set myself up for failure. And that is, if I can take 6 deep breaths once a day to start and say, and maybe write that down in my journal that I did that, to me, once a day, doing that for a week or two is much more beneficial than doing some big thing every so often. Because then that can grow. That can grow. It's just like exercise. I work out every day too. I have to do that. I do yoga, but whatever, people do their own thing. If I don't do that every day, I don't feel quite right. And if I don't meditate every day, I don't feel quite right. I know I wouldn't feel quite right if I didn't brush my teeth.
Right.
I know I wouldn't feel quite right if I didn't bathe. I know I wouldn't feel quite right if I didn't make my bed. You know, and some people can live with not doing those things, and I'm not saying that that's wrong, but for me, everybody's got something that they do. You know, something that they do every day.
Even if it's just make coffee or...
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely. So that's how I would approach it, is to see it as that type of thing, and to start small and to keep a very light touch. Because if you start to get real heavy-handed with yourself, you tend to resist it, and you tend to forget about it, or you avoid it, or you put it off. And if you miss a day, you know, the world isn't going to end, you know. But you know, if you start missing a bunch of days, it's not that you're bad. It's just that you need to look at that. It's like, why isn't this a priority? Am I not? Is there no benefit? Now, do you notice that there's benefit when you do it regularly?
Oh, yeah, huge.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So at least you know it's not just some mindless exercise.
No.
So
I miss it, to be honest. I mean, after my life-changing event of...
Well, when you have a baby,
I miss it.
when you have a baby, you the only time you're able to do your first key, you know, sometimes is as you're drifting off to sleep while they're asleep, you know, and that's okay. But like I said, let your first key or whatever whatever your daily practice is, let it just be taking 6 breaths, and that's it.
Yeah.
No more. In fact, what I've talked to with people before that are having problems with daily kinds of commitments is, if you can say you're going to meditate for 5 minutes, if you set your, like, if you have an iPhone or something like that has a pretty, you know, alarm,
yeah,
so that it's not jarring,
right,
so it's like little heart music or something that comes on or whatever to let you know that the 5 minutes is up. Make sure that you don't do any more than 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. You say, no, this is it. Or say it's 1 minute. You're going to start out with 1 minute of relaxation and meditation. No more.
I love it.
Even if you want to do more, no. You're only doing a minute. But then, maybe once that gets solid and you know that you can do that, then up it to 2 minutes. You know, and keep upping it. If you added a minute of meditation every once a week, in 20 weeks, not only would you be a seasoned meditator, but you'd be meditating at a significant period of time.
Right.
You know.
And initially you probably have like, that was a minute? Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
You know, and so I can see that, but I like the idea of...
Start small.
Because, I mean, even just taking the time on Samhain, like the baby's asleep, and now I'm going to do my reading.
Yes.
Meditate, and I just had to put my
Right.
hand up to my partner, like, go away.
Well, and also, you know, there's this deserving thing that we have. You know, it's just like, well, everybody else needs to get taken care of, and then I'll take care of me. But the oxygen masks come down, and you have to put yours on first so that you are of use to people around you. And if you're not taking care of yourself, then you're really not of as much use. You'll notice that your career, you'll become better at what you do. You'll be better as a mom. You'll be better as an everything. You'll be better as a lover, as a wife, as a this, as a that. Just because you're taking care of yourself. You know, it's a nourishment. It's like a nutrition.
And so start with a small bite every day.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's not a diet, though. It's a feast. There is a difference between meditation and ritual, and if you don't have the meditation aspect honed, then the ritual part of it is not as powerful. Because if you can't focus your thoughts, if you can't focus your mind, then running around, you know, and doing ritual gestures doesn't have much power. Because the reason why people don't get results in magic is because of the fact that their minds are undisciplined. And it's not that they're bad. You know, it's not. A lot of times, I can't make this work. I can't make this work. What's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. It's that you don't practice. You know, the reason why you can't play piano as well as somebody else is because you don't come home and practice every day like they do. So what we have to learn is that our instrument is our magic. You know, and so in order to, like somebody was asking me, you know, you talk about these results that you get sometimes, and I'm wondering if you kind of if you kind of maybe exaggerate a little bit. And I said, absolutely not. In fact, I hold back because I don't want to, I don't want to brag. I don't want to make it sound, like, look at how wonderful I am. I only do things like that for examples to help focus, the conversation. But the reason why some people don't get as good of results as other people is not because they're not as deserving, and it's not because they're not, they have the wrong astrology chart. It's not because they burn the wrong incense. It's not because of anything other than the fact that they don't practice. They don't focus. They don't get their energy bodies, their mental bodies, their emotional bodies in line, in focus. So if you think of magic as light, think of it as light. So there's light. When light is diffused, it can light up a room. It's very pretty, right? When you focus it, you can actually search for something in the dark, like a flashlight, right? So the difference between a street light and a flashlight in the dark. The street light gives you basic light so that you can walk on the path. But if you're looking for something that you dropped, it's not enough light usually. So you need to get a flashlight. But if that light was focused even more, it can turn into a surgical tool. It can resurface your skin. It can create major light shows at concerts. Laser lights you can do surgery with it. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with lasers. So the more focused your light is, the more you can do with it. The more exacting it can be. So people that do very general, basic, magical practices that aren't real focused, they do make their lives lighter, and it's wonderful. They'll maybe either in the primer, like what we teach, or in somebody else's system, whatever system it is, they might do some smudging, or might ritual bathing. They might do the Kabbalistic cross. They might do something, whatever. They might do some ritual gestures every day, which brings them some more light in their lives, and it makes them feel better. But when it comes to actually creating major change in the world, until they're able to focus more, they're not able to make that change as profoundly. And so a lot of times when we give people real basic exercises, like the body awareness exercises, sometimes at the beginning, they're very commonly done in magical practice. Put all of your focus, all of your consciousness into your right toe, your right big toe. Put all of your focus, all your consciousness into, so that you're focusing your mind and noticing when your mind wanders, because the mind is apt to do that. So until you're able to not indulge in mind wandering, you're not able to focus that light. So these kinds of exercises that we give people to focus their minds, there's nothing magical about any one of those things. They're just in order so that you cannot have your mind be easily distracted. So some people might use, like you were talking about, mantras. They might, like they're especially popular in Eastern types of disciplines. But I give the Blessed Be meditation to people, and that's where you just take the word blessed on the inhale and the word be on the exhale, and you mentally think that over and over again. You could say green beans. It wouldn't matter. There's nothing special about Blessed Be. It could be anything. But the good thing about having a mantra that has a sacred a connotation to your mind is that you're not only focusing your mind, but you're focusing your mind on something sacred. So, if you wanted it just to be very pragmatic, you could have the mantra be anything you want. You have one thing on the inhale, one thing on the exhale, but your body is quiet. Your body is still. Your spine is straight. Your body is relaxed. Your mental shield is down, and your mind is focused. Something that they teach in certain practices and in the East as well is that if you focus your eyeballs up and in toward the third eye while you're meditating, it helps to focus your mind. So there's there's the practice of the fourfold breath that I love, whereas you find your heartbeat, even if you have to use your fingers on your carotid artery there, until you can sense it without that. You find your heartbeat, and then you find a rhythm that's comfortable for you. For me, it's usually 6 heartbeats for an inhale. Hold it for half that amount. So 6 on the inhale, hold for 3, exhale for 6, and hold it out for 3. So whatever you find is a comfortable rate of breath for you, you inhale for a certain amount of heartbeats, you hold it for half that amount, you exhale for the original amount that you inhaled on, and you hold it out for the half amount. And you do that over and over again. That fourfold breath is a very basic magical tool for focusing the mind. Because when you focus the breath, when you focus the breath, you focus the mind. When you're able to slow down the breath, you're able to slow down the mind. And you're able to relax the body more easily. So those are some of the kinds of things you can practice on a daily basis. And when you're in the bathroom, you don't have anything else to do. You may as well do the fourfold breath, right? Right before you're ready. But again, right before you're ready to do any kind of magic, if you can focus your breathing and focus your mind, we do the 6 deep breaths, right? But then but on top of that, if you do that fourfold breath, and then when you start to do rituals, you can incorporate the ritual gesture with the breath. So like say you're one of those people who do the Kabbalistic cross. You can do the inhale for 6 breaths, hold, ate, hold it out. Inhale, malkuth, right? So that you're not stopping that rhythmic breathing. You're actually incorporating it into, so that your ritual becomes part of that. It becomes part of your breathing. So then your ritual is more like a dance, more of a sacred dance, and not just some arbitrary movements that you're doing, right? So then, when your mind is focused and you know that you're able to consider a single-pointedly a concept or a subject without being distracted for a significant period of time, then you know that you're more of a laser focus. And then when you've got that laser focus, what you're focusing on in regards to your visualization part of your magic has more power, because you're not distracted from it. Does that make sense? So we know we've got to relax the mind. We know we've got to relax the body. We know we've got to picture what we desire in order to get results. But people forget that you also have to focus on that picture. Now, what happens is people then forget the most important part of all of this. Well, there's several parts of this, but one thing that people forget a lot of times is that when you're done, you're done. Then you move away and you don't think about it anymore. You pretend like you never even did it. You don't even think about that spell once it's done. If you're doing, let's say, a spell, you decide, I'm going to do the same spell. I'm going to start something like on the first day after the wax of the new moon. So I'm going to do a spell for, a new job. I'm going to bring in, I'm going to get a new job, or I'm going to bring in some new clients, or whatever. You're something new. So you think, okay, I'm going to start for the new, let's just say some new prosperity. So I'm going to start on the first Thursday after the new moon, because it's Jupiter. And I'm going to, actually started in a Jupiter hour, so my timing is great. I've got all the rhythms, all the tides, everything's going my way. I'm going to use, Jupiter colors, candles. I'm going to, I've got, Jupiterian deities within a certain pantheon that I love to work with, both male and female. I've got, I've got a cornucopia on my altar, whatever. My altar cloth is purple and blue. My candles are blue. I am Jupitered out, right? And so say you decide, okay, well, I'm going to do it for however many days you decide that you need to do this spell. Let's say that you're doing it for, that you might be bringing several different elements into it. So you decide that you're going to do it for 5 days, or maybe you're going to do it for 7 days, and so every day at the same time, because you're going to, when you start a spell is what's important. So you're starting it on the Jupiter day and a Jupiter hour, right? So that's what's important, is when you start it. But then for each consecutive day, if you can try to start it at the same time that you did, not worrying about whether you're in a Jupiter hour or not, but let's say that Jupiter hour happened to be at 6 p.m. that day. It wouldn't be, but just say it was. Then you're going to do it at 6 p.m. every night for 7 nights. So you started it on, say, if you decide you're doing a 7-day spell. So you decided you're starting your Jupiter spell on Thursday on a Jupiter hour. Let's say it was 6 p.m. Well, on Friday at 6 p.m. you're going to do it. On Saturday at 6 p.m. you're going to do it. On Sunday, blah, blah, blah. You're going to go through until you get to do it on Wednesday. When you finished your spell on Thursday, you forget about it until you come back on Friday. And then you do your spell, and then you forget about it until you come back on Saturday, and you do it. Once you've done it 7 nights, then you forget about it utterly, completely. You got to let it go, because if you are obsessing on it, you are calling that energy back to you. You're not letting it do its thing. You're calling that. It's like you're calling the thought form back to you. Yes.
Okay, so you're going for this prosperity and hiring or whatever.
Yes.
And you're supposed to forget about it. I absolutely remember that. But you're also supposed to do something about it. Like if you're looking for a new job, you just not look through the want ad.
I'm not saying that you're supposed to forget about your goal. I'm saying you're supposed to forget about your spell.
10-4.
Got it? That's a good. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, of course you got to do the footwork. You got to send out your resumes, but you'd be doing that anyway. Right? You'd be doing that anyway. But you're not like saying, okay, now I'm going to sprinkle juju powder over my resume and say, you don't need to do that. You don't need to keep doing it. Right. You're gonna forget that you did this spell, and you're just gonna go about your business and see what happens. Now it's always in the back of your mind. I understand this. That's okay. But you don't need to keep, I guess my point is that you don't need to keep visualizing it. You don't need to keep the energy going. You need to release the energy. Yes.
So you're talking almost more like a sleight of mind kind of thing. Like once it's done, almost in a way forget what you have done and then just focus on the goal in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. And take life as it comes. See what happens.
Until that 24 hours comes, if it's a 7 days.
Right.
Then you're in that mode.
Because you've scheduled it. Oh, spell 6 p.m. I got a day with Jupiter. And I got to be there.
Really, though, because you got a relationship with all these things around you.
Absolutely. And what happens is when you start doing those things is you really do get a relationship with these deities and with these energies, and they're more real than they were before that. Yeah.
And then the focusing with the meditation, not only being able to focus on the goal when you are doing the magic, if you have focus in the mind with the meditation.
And you can focus on not that.
Exactly. Okay, cool.
Yeah. You can focus it out of your mind. Again, you don't need to obsess over it. If you think about it, it's not like you've destroyed it, but you don't need to obsess over it. If it comes into your mind, you can say, oh, great. It's just like whatever, anything.
You're watching a great movie, you're going to think about it.
Of course.
Movie I watched, but you're not going to talk to about everybody.
Yeah, you're not going to tell everybody the ending. You're going to keep it secret. You're going to keep it secret. Because remember the witch's pyramid. Faith, imagination, will, secrecy. Right? So part of secrecy is just letting it go. Part of secrecy is making it sacred and keeping it sacred within the circle that you did the magic to begin with. And once you're out of that circle, there's nothing to think or talk about. What you saw there, what you said there, it was there.
And now we're taking all of that energy, because if we are all able to focus, we will have just hit it with times.
Yes. Now, what happens is you start getting better and better results as you do this stuff. And so you need to, there's a tightrope that you've got to walk, because you've got to be awake and aware to what's going on. You don't want to just pretend like, oh, I never did the spell. It's not that. It's, you've got to be aware of when something happens that is the manifestation or part of the manifestation of your spell, so that you can respond to it appropriately. Right? And a lot of times what happens is we will get things that we think are the manifestation of our spell that we still have to just say, just because it showed up on my front door doesn't mean that I have to say yes. For instance, I once did, speaking of prosperity, I did a spell for business. And the day after I did it, I got this call, from this woman that said, I want you to be on my TV show, and we're going to do blah, 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 blah. And I said, oh, that sounds great. I'm thinking, oh, that was fast. But then she said, oh, by the way, there's a production fee involved, and it's, and then it turned into like this kind of sleazy advertising thing. And I'm thinking, I have to be really focused. I have to be able to go within and just say, is this really the manifestation of my spell, or is this just some sleazy advertiser that wants my money? And in my gut, I'm like, no, thank you. I don't want to do this. So I wasn't. You have to be able to just still have some level of discernment and have some practical street smarts to be able to know that not everything that comes across your way is the manifestation of your spell. You can, it's just like when somebody finds Jesus, they think that they're blessed, and it's just like, you still have to lock your door, lady. Whether Jesus is protecting you or not, you're still going to lock your door.
You still have to hold on to the steering wheel, because Jesus isn't going to
take the wheel. Right. So, but what happens is with people is they get so. Another reason why people don't get the results that they want in their magic is because they are. How do I say this without being offensive? They're very in love with their problems.
Oh yeah.
They're very, very, and they don't see it themselves. Just like you don't smell your own body odor sometimes, you can't tell. You don't see yourself, until sometimes if you see a picture of yourself, you're like, wow, that's not how I look in the mirror, it looks really different. So sometimes you got to be gentle and loving with people who come to you for help sometimes, but you realize that a lot of when people come to me and they say, my spell isn't working, and I say, well, tell me about the situation, tell me about it, blah, blah, blah. It's like, all you've been talking about is my problem, me. And they have this sort of, it's almost this sort of reverence and awe, and they're almost proud of their problems, And so, of course, doing a spell isn't going to do much for that, because they need to work on a different level. You don't want to necessarily sometimes go for the result. You want to go for the cause. What's the cause of this problem? So a lot of these like root chakra type things, the first, second, even third chakra type of things, where it's very deep-seated. It's like very deep-seated in childhood. It's very deep-seated in survival, and you can't see the forest for the trees. And so sometimes people need more than just a spell. They need a good therapist, or they need some, they need to get out of their depression somehow before they can actually raise the type of energy and be focused literally on the solution and not on the problem. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And it's not that it's not that we're saying, oh, those poor people, because we're so much better than they are, because we all do it. We all have that on
solution.
Huh?
Depends if you want a solution. If you're wrapped up in your problem, you might not even want a solution. You're wallowing in it so far.
Well, it's easy to say that, but sometimes people do want a solution, but they don't realize where they are. They know they want out of it, but they don't realize that they're the cause of it. And it's such an affront to the ego to say, you're the, what's the common denominator in all your problems? It's you. It's such an affront to the ego, and they don't want to hear it. And so, you got to be careful sometimes, because you don't want to. Sometimes certain types of confrontation can actually reinforce the problem. So that's why there's certain types of magical systems that are very confrontational. They're all about just ripping open the psyche and having utter chaos happen, so that they can have catharsis. And sometimes that actually is more damaging than helpful. Not always. Sometimes primal scream therapies and stuff like that can have their place, but sometimes it can actually do more damage than good. So my worldview, slowly is holy. Slowly is holy. So what we would say is, yeah, I know you want to, whatever. What's a goal that somebody might have, like a major goal?
A major goal?
Yeah, major. Like that's going to be
president of a company.
Okay, and let's say they're barely making their rent on their one single room that they live in, and their Del Taco containers are stacked up around them, right? So it's an onion peeling process. Let's get through the first layer of it. That's good to have a long-term goal, but let's break it down. Remember, we talk about, I don't know if we talked about it here, but the circle of influence. Your circle of influence right now doesn't include being the president of a corporation, perhaps, if you're that person. But your circle of influence is that you could clean up those containers. You could have a nicer living environment without spending one dime. So let's look at what your circle of influence is first, and let's exhaust that. And once you've exhausted that, then you are able to expand it. And you can expand it a little bit more, and expand it a little bit more. And then remember how Eli talks about the difference between stress and strain? Strain is something is pressure applied or resistance applied to a muscle. And strain is too much resistance, or resistance applied too quickly. Right? So somebody that's never lifted weights before, they don't want to just go in and pound it. They want to work on their form first, and then they want to add a little weight, and then a little bit more weight. But they want to be in the gym every well, maybe not every day, but depending on what there is, 3 or 4 times a week. Okay, so for us, the same thing goes with our magic. Let's break our goals down. Let's break our goals down into something that is maybe a slight stretch for us, that's just outside of our immediate comfort zone. Maybe cleaning up your room is a little uncomfortable for you, but it's something that you could do. And don't poo-poo this idea of cleaning up your room, because it's very magical, because everything has a correspondence to part of the mental world. Every part of the physical world corresponds to the mental world. So I know I've got a lot of disorganization in my mortal world, and a lot of times, because when I am very in a high arc of success, I do leave certain things going because I'm so busy. But when I come back down and I'm not so busy and I'm having some downtimes, what rather than saying, "Oh my God, I don't have business today," it's like, thank God I'm not busy. I can get all this paperwork done. I can get all this stuff taken care of that I couldn't. My assistant would never know what to do with this, so I couldn't do this. She couldn't do it, so I've got to do it. So it's wonderful. And as soon as I complete all that, the phone's going to be ringing off the hook, and it always is. And if it's not, it's because there's something else for me to do and focus on. Yes.
Would this almost be seen as like a bit of like a correlation with what you were saying before, as like try to find magic initially, not to obsess on? So instead of doing like the big grand scheme, becoming the president of my own country, or
that too. Whatever you want.
President of my own country. To sort of.
But then you'd want to be the king.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the emperor.
But it's good to be the king. Anyway, sorry, just kidding. But my point in being is that like it's so much easier to obsess on becoming the president of like your company.
Uh-huh.
It's much easier to let go of doing a spell to stop eating Taco Bell or cleaning your room.
Well, let's look at it as there's nothing wrong with having the goal of being the president of your company.
No.
Absolutely. But then you break it down.
Well, my point in saying that is that, like, it'd be easier to initially start doing magical practices, means of ways of focusing on cleaning your room.
Yeah.
And start slowly, because I can clean my room and let go of that one.
Right.
Then rather than having like the big goal that you are going to continue to obsess on. So by doing the layers, would it almost correlate into learning how to do magic simply and then getting more intense as time goes on, even as those layers are pulled
because
back?
What happens is if you're focusing on what's in front of you as what your goal is, knowing that you also have a long-term goal, but you're not necessarily doing magic for the long-term goal, but you know it's there.
Yeah.
By the time you get to a point where what's in front of you, if somebody else that was in your position 4 years ago when you were dealing with the Taco Bell containers saw what was in front of you, they think, oh my God, that's huge. But for you, it's not. It's just the next thing, because you're stronger. You're stronger, and it's just like when somebody's in the gym and they're really pressing a lot of weights and they're doing it well. They don't think about it as being a lot of weight. It's just where they are. It's what they need to do. So, but yeah, it's what's in front of you. In AA, they call it it's life on life's terms. Life on life's terms. Sometimes the way they say it is a little not quite the same way that we mean it, because it's like. I agree that, and I talk a lot about, and I totally agree with the idea that if I surrender completely to the will of the goddess, that everything will work well for me. But that doesn't mean, I'm just going to give it to the goddess and I'll just go eat bonbons and watch soap operas. It means that the will of the goddess is my heart's desire, is what I really want to do. The will of the goddess, or the will of the gods, or there is no part of me that is not of the gods. That's a great line from Crowley. So if I'm focusing what he called on your true will, if you're focusing on your true will, that is the will of God. That is the will of the goddess. But it's not that they're going to do your housework for you. It's not that you're not going to call up the goddess and say, your will be done, and can I have fries with that? It's that they're giving you power so that you can focus your mind on what your goal is for the desire that they put in there, because you're co-creating.
And if you unfetter your mind with all of these little Taco Bell boxes, and my mom was always famous for saying, a clean home is a peaceful place to think.
Yes.
And not just because she's a neat freak, which she is, I'm sorry, Mom, but also because if you could get all that done, now your mind is open.
Right.
To think about anything and everything that you possibly want.
Absolutely.
It's not about the dishes or the boxes or what the cat hair.
And you just start with where you are.
Right.
And some people's homes are in a real mess, and and to think about having a clean home is too big of the piece of the onion for them. They need to start with one drawer. Mm-hmm. And that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's fine. And there's nothing wrong. And it's not like the people with the clean home and the organized desk are better, because I know some amazing people that get so much done and that are so utterly powerful, who have the messiest desks in the world. So it's not that the clean desk people are better than the messy desk people. I'm just talking about what is the obvious goal for you. So for a lot of people, it is cleaning their house or cleaning their desk or whatever, because that's something they can do. It's something you can actually do. If you feel powerless over your life and over your finances or whatever you're dealing with, and you've got a messy home, it's time to clean. And that's where it's great to do some of this voodoo stuff, where you put your Van stuff in your floor wash, and you burn your incense, and you clean your floors with this stuff, because you're bringing in that great energy as a magical intention of, I'm cleaning out my life, I'm cleaning out my mind while I'm cleaning out my life, my home. You know what I'm saying?
You're sweeping out the yuckies.
Yeah, you're sweeping out the cobwebs of your mind, and it's just a manifestation in your home. It's not about your home. It's about your mind.
Yeah, I can understand the sweeping. I used to like to go home, and I still do. First thing I do is I go home and I go outside and I'll sweep up all the leaves, and it's almost like you're sweeping away the days.
It's wonderful.
Whatever happened, and if you're putting it in a pile and you're setting it off, then you're taking care of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You had a question?
I did,
Or
you
comment?
talked about living life on
life's terms.
To me, what I'm hearing is you're just letting life dictate where you're going to go, and you're not in control, and you're just letting life bat you around, and yeah, here I am, and this is where I'm at. But you're letting life do all that to you, rather than like taking life by the reins and then moving. So,
Okay.
yes, I needed some clarification.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That's what I don't agree with. Life on life's terms means that your life is a direct reflection of your mind.
Absolutely.
So, once you've done your magical work, what you do in the mundane world is take one thing as it comes at a time, and you meet each challenge that's right in front of you. You don't take 5 steps ahead. You take one step at a time.
Be here now.
Be here now. And life on life's terms means that your life, from what I'm talking about, not necessarily the AA version of it, although we do have some agreement, is that when whatever you're dealing with in your life, if you can't take responsibility for it as something that you created, it has power over you. Now, some people get very upset with me when I say that they created this. How could I have created this disease? How could I have created being raped? That's blaming the victim. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that you can't change what is, but you can change your perception of it, and you can change what you do about it.
You can't change what is, but you can change
What is what is.
Right.
Yeah, it's what it is. So magic isn't going to change what's now. Magic is going to change how you respond to what's now, so that you can direct what will be. Now, in your mind, if you can change your mind about something, even though the circumstances don't reflect that change, if you literally change your mind about it, you've changed it here and now, because it doesn't bother you anymore. Right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's what your mindset is, and that's what magic is, right? And mental magic.
The first thing that we've got to be able to do is recognize that it's not only about creating some external circumstance for us, it's the ability to shift our perception about what is. So I wanted a clear sunny day today, and it's raining. Okay, well, it's not the rain that's the problem. It's the fact that I said in order for me to be happy, it had to be sunny, rather than experience the joy of the fact that life sent me a rainy day today, right? And it's my responsibility how I respond to that. I created the reality. I didn't necessarily create the rain, but I created my response and reaction to the rain.
See it as a car washed, as plants watered, as what...
I saved $40 on my car washes this week because they couldn't do it.
I left early coming here today, and I wasn't going to be in a hurry. And every time somebody got in front of me, I thought, well, that's fine because I'm in no hurry, and and I let it go. Whereas other times I'd be like, it's California, get the hell out of my way, right? And it's funny how I looked at the guy in front of me, and I didn't care, and I still had time to stop before I got here.
Right. So there is a balancing act. There's a dichotomy of you've got to be able to know what you want out of your life so that you can create circumstances, because it's okay to have goals. I'm not one of those people that say that, it's just whatever will be, will be. No, it's okay to have goals, and it's okay to direct your mind, and it's okay to direct your life. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is to be able to be perfectly okay with what life gave you today. What showed up for you today. Okay, so for instance, I remember once I decided I really wanted to be of service. So I said, God, just send me students. And then once it showed up, I'm like, okay, but I didn't want those students. You know what I'm saying? Rather than realizing that they were the perfect students for me. They were exactly what I needed, because the reason why I didn't want those students is because they required me to experience some discomfort about certain personality traits that I needed to clean up within myself. right? And this is what happened. As soon as I became okay with them, my perception of them either completely changed or they left. Once I was at peace with them, they either no longer needed to be here because I didn't need that lesson, or my perception of them changed, and I realized that I had projected something onto them that didn't even exist, or maybe they healed. Who knows? Whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So there's two sides of the coin that we've always got to balance. We've always got to be right on the edge of the coin there of knowing what we want, and then so it's surrendering to what is, and then telling what is how to be.
Whoa. Surrendering what is and telling what is how to be.
Yeah. So we got to be able to walk that very fine line. There's nothing wrong with wanting money. But if you're broke that day, you're broke that day. Okay? If you're in debt, if you're $20,000 in credit card debt, that's where you are. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be highly prosperous and having, $500,000 in the bank. But you've got to be able to do both, surrender to what is and have a goal. You've got to be able to do both. If you can't be at peace with the fact that you're in debt, you're never going to be able to pay those debts off because you're going to be constantly, guilt, anger, all those emotions that we stuff into the depths of our emotions come out in all kinds of erratic behaviors that create us being stuck. That was that first chakra stuff we were talking about before. There's probably a deep-seated reason why you're in debt. It's not that you're a bad person. It's that there's something to deal with. So you got to just be okay with where you are, and then take it one little layer of the onion at a time. Maybe you can pay off whatever it is. Maybe you could do a spell rather than I'm completely debt free. Maybe you could do a spell for, being $5,000 less in debt by the end of the year, and then
able to make your minimum payment for some people. That's a huge
right. Or whatever you're thinking.
1 out of 5. Yeah.
Whatever it is. So. But if you can't make peace with what is, you have no power over the situation. So that makes sense, right? So is there anybody that has a situation in their life that they're not absolutely 100% peaceful about?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so right, so we're all in the same big club, right? That's okay. So knowing that everybody's got those should make you feel a little bit better. That you're not some strange creature from the Black Lagoon, that nobody else has got this going on. What you can do, though, is realize that it's just a matter of changing your perception. It's just a matter of changing your consciousness. If you think about things in terms of subatomic particles, let's just think of it that way. There's little space between each particle, and that if you go down far enough, it's energy. And if you perceive that energy as light, that there's nothing but light. In that realm, there is no debt. There is no credit. There is only light. Right? So if you can move your mind into the fact that, wait a minute, there's a place in the universe where there is only light, then you can see your debts dissolving into the light. And you can realize that they don't really have any power over you in the grand scheme of things. When it's 3,000 years from now and you've lived several more lives and you look down, you're probably not going to be thinking about that credit card. Right? So you can just let go of it for the moment and then realize all I have to do is pay the darn thing. All it is going to take is a little bit more money. And that's something that you can do. Anybody can get a little bit more money. You could even if you wanted to get real mundane, you could get a second job. You could sell things. You could do eBay. You could have a garage sale. There's something you could do. But if you're thinking in terms of magic, you could also do a spell to create a little bit more prosperity. That make sense? So you got to be able to do both. Any other questions about this? The topic, I'm not really sure what it was. It was kind of we started off with focus, but it's just how do it's like that. Yeah.
Focus on how to apply it. in order to get a goal, which the goal must be determined by its actual layers, and part of that is being done so that we will not have to perseverate on, oh, it's awful, oh, poor me, oh, it's awful.
Right. So, there's one last thing, is that all magic is a shift in perception. All magic is a shift in perception, because there is an alternate universe where you already have what you want. There's an alternate universe where you already have what you want. And your goal is to just be able to learn how to bless and love this present situation, because you know that it's what you want in disguise. Yeah?
Yo,
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So if it's like sometimes, have you ever noticed that sometimes your biggest challenge was able to, when you look back at it, propel you into your greatest success? That's why when we were talking about the grand square in my chart, and astrologers look at it and they run. And they're like, oh my gosh, how can you run? It's just like, but everything in that grand square is everything that is the strongest thing about my life. My most cherished parts of my personality. But it's also stuff that I had to work really hard for. Really, really hard for. The trines, just like, it's just like my green eyes. Yeah, my trine is the green eyes. I had nothing to do with it. But the square was everything I had to work my ass off for. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process. I enjoyed the journey. And I'm still enjoying that journey. It's hard, but it's fun. Same thing goes with all of us. We've all got our challenges. And I think that the thing that we have going for us that a lot of people unfortunately don't is that we have technology in order to sort of bore through the mountain. Instead of having to climb all the way up over it and over the other side of it, we can bore through the mountain and get to our goals faster. Because the good news is that as soon as you get a goal, by the time you've reached the goal, you've got some other goals already going, and this one isn't all that important anymore. And so it's never going to end. So it's okay for you to have what you want, because what you want is going to keep expanding as your circle of influence expands.